You know, when you think of a car theft hotspot, your mind probably jumps to a huge, sprawling city, right? But what if I told you the place your car is most likely to get stolen in North Carolina isn't a big city at all? We are digging into some really surprising data that completely flips that idea on its head.
So let's just try a quick thought experiment. If you had to guess the car theft capital of North Carolina, what's the first name that pops into your head? Go on, think about it. Is it Charlotte? Raleigh? Whatever you're thinking, lock it in, because the real answer is probably going to shock you. First things first, let's just get a sense of the scale here. We're not talking about a few random thefts here and there. Car theft is a major, statewide problem for North Carolina. And look, that's not just a feeling or some local rumor. This is backed by hard data from the FBI. Their crime stats show that North Carolina consistently ranks really high for motor vehicle theft, which makes this a serious issue for pretty much everyone in the state. So the big question is, where is the risk the highest? Well, to figure that out, we can't just count the total number of stolen cars. We have to look at something different. We have to look at the rate. And trust me, this is where the story gets really interesting. Okay, so what does theft rate even mean? It's pretty simple, actually. It's the number of car thefts for every 100,000 people living in an area. This is so important because it levels the playing field. It tells you your actual personal risk of being a victim, whether you live in a tiny town or a giant city. All right, now that we're all on the same page about what the rate is, let's go back to that first question I asked. Where is your personal risk of having your car stolen the highest in all of North Carolina? I'm willing to bet it's not the city you guessed earlier. And here it is. This is the big twist. The number one spot for the highest car theft rate in 2024 isn't Charlotte, it's not Raleigh, it's the town of Pineville. Wow. And right behind it are Salisbury and Lumberton. Definitely not the huge metropolitan areas most of us would think of. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. Pineville, Salisbury, and Lumberton. When you adjust for how many people live there, these are the riskiest places for your car. It really makes you wonder, why them? Maybe it's because they're near major highways, making for a quick getaway. Who knows? It's a real puzzle. But of course, looking at the rate, at the individual risk, is only one way to slice the data. It tells us about your personal chances, but not about the overall size of the problem. So yeah, that's really only half the story. So let's talk about the other half, total volume. This one is way more straightforward. We're just looking at a simple count. Which cities have the highest raw number of cars getting stolen, period. And this list, this is probably what you were expecting from the beginning. When you just count the total number of stolen cars, the state's biggest cities are at the top, no question. Charlotte has more total thefts than anywhere else in the state, followed by the other big players, Raleigh, Greensboro, and Durham. It just makes sense, right? More people, more cars, more chances for theft. Okay, so now we've got these two totally different ways of looking at the exact same problem. On one hand, you've got the rate, which is all about individual risk. And on the other, you've got the volume, which shows you the sheer scale of it all.
And honestly, you can boil this whole thing down to this one simple comparison right here. Pineville, a smaller town, has the highest risk for each person, but Charlotte, the huge city, has the highest total number of thefts. You've got two completely different places, and yet they each hold a number one spot for the exact same crime. It's fascinating. What all this really shows us is that car theft in North Carolina isn't just a big city problem, and it's not just a small town problem. It's both. It is a stubborn, persistent challenge all across the state that just looks a little different depending on where you happen to be. So we'll leave you with this to think about. We've seen the top spots for both risk and for raw numbers. Now the question is, where does your hometown fit into all this? And maybe more importantly, how does knowing this change the way you think about where crime actually happens?